What's up, everybody? Thralls here once again. I'm Necrotic Nick.
I'm Jammin John.
And we have an album review for you. So one that we definitely had our eyes on for the week of the 24th of March was the latest offering from Ne Obliviscaris, Exul. This band is absolutely fucking fascinating with all the elements that they bring into their sound. It is just otherworldly, so we had to go over this, and plus we've been fans for a little while. Anyway, this does come out again on the 24th of March on Season Miss Records. This band formed in 2003 in Australia. This is their fourth album overall. I've been a fan since the album Citadel, I believe, was the first one I picked up.
That's when I started.
And yeah, I was pretty blown away with their blend of progressive metal, kind of like a vague extreme metal, because you get elements of death metal, melodic death metal, black metal in there, and neoclassical play. Now this album definitely comes with a little bit of a cloud hanging over it, because this is the last album they've done with Dan Presland, their longtime drummer. He left last year, but he completed work on this album, and that definitely sucks because the dude's an fucking insane drummer.
Yeah, we've talked to a lot of people, and we've seen a lot of things, and I agree. I don't know what they're going to do without Dan Presland. He brings a definite flavor to this band and pretty much anything he touches, because Dan Presland's such a fuck of a drummer. I mean, not that there aren't a lot of other drummers in the metal community who can play with technical precision, but I mean, farewell, my friend. we bid you well.
Best of luck on future endeavors. I'm reasonably sure everyone's going to hire you. So you have to forgive us if we sound extra fucking raspy. We are recovering from colds, because we're recovering from colds, and we caught one at the Gorod show. Yay.
Yeah, right. Yeah. About the time we were almost all the way home from Gorod, I started feeling it, and I was like, dude, no.
Yep.
And here we are. So if we sound sniffly or nasally, or you dry-throaty, or you catch one of us coughing, we're recovering from the plague.
On the mend.
So, yep.
We're doing much better.
I'm doing right. I feel loads better than I have the last 72 hours, but God.
Yeah. It's the whole phase of getting all the shit out.
Yep.
Anyway, back to the album. All right, going into this band's sound, again, progressive, extreme, neoclassical, and they bring in some really amazing elements. And one of the things they're definitely known for is the violin, which is kind of odd to bring that up first for a metal band, but no, legit, the violin. Their frontman / clean singer / violinist plays a mean violin, and it is all over this album. The opening track, Equus, pretty much kind of forgoes any sort of intro. Like, it really just kind of gets to it. You get into this tribal sort of rhythm. There's a cool bass line on top of it, and the song silly picks up steam with, really solid, clean vocals, kind of pivoting back and forth between harsh vocals and big riffs and violin play. And the violin adds so much to this band's sound.
Yes, it does. And it always has. Because the violin, to me, I think adds kind of like a folky, kind of proggy element that you don't get in a whole lot of places. But, it really allows all these tracks to breathe and kind of emote in ways that others wouldn't.
Honestly, the violin not only works as like a lead instrument, like, guitars and such, because it does share lead duties with the lead guitars, it also kind of works as like vocal passages too, because it emotes so well. Like all the sad, dreary lines on here, like some of this kind of reminds me of like if, I don't know, a band like Disillusion or BT Bam kind of hooked up with My Dying Bride and said, no, bring your violin and all of your depression. We'll work with that and write some songs.
Circling back to that folky style that I was speaking of, the song Misericord 1, As the Flesh Falls, has this really cool bossa nova groove in the bridge that sounds really folky, like a folky bossa nova.
Yeah, like Greek folk too, and it's very Mediterranean. I would definitely say that there's some world music explored on here. You have flamenco guitars on Suspire, and even in Misericord 2, which is an interesting kind of long build of a song, there's some more like bluesy notes, almost like kind of a seedy jazz bar, and all this sort of interwoven with like very intense, like kind of death metal / melodic death metal, like riffing and like blast beats and such. And it's really cool to hear how they kind of interweave this, because I mean, as far as musicianship on this album and this band, man, these guys are all like top tier. Like there isn't one instrument on here that I think was slacking one fucking bit.
No, because we were talking about this earlier. It's not so much songwriting, because normally when we discuss bands, we say, well, they obviously put some more thought into the dynamics of writing these songs. This is full-blown musical composition. This is almost like composing a classical music piece, so to speak, but metal in this case.
They're one of those book-learned bands went to the educationalizing buildings.
Went to the schools and wrote the things on the board and the stuff. Public education.
They's be brains washed. But it isn't all like, journeying across the globe to find different styles of music to put in here. There's some really intense moments on here. Namely, Growl. Growl, I would say, is one of the heaviest tracks. It definitely has its moments of introspective beauty and, like some different elements they pull in, but the bulk of it is very intense, very dark. There's a lot of stuff in there that reminds me of like Dark Tranquility in terms of the riffing. It's melodic, but it's more aggressive.
Kind of like if Neuraxis played world music.
Yeah.
Lots of death metal chugs, lots of riffing. In fact, every time that it does go clean, it always builds to something death metal.
Yeah. And there's some relentless chugging on here. And, guitar work on here is often just sort of like complementing like the bigger picture. Very rarely do the guitars get like isolated to lay on a big riff, but generally when they do, it's definitely something like more heavy, like more just sort of aggressive sounding, and Growl definitely has that. Same with Suspire. Suspire has some really solid, more like death metal moments, like more blast beats, maybe some stuff that is almost sort of akin to black metal too. Like the vocals on here, well, you have two different vocalists. The singer is absolutely excellent. Great range, very comparable to like Geddy Lee, I would say Daniel Tompkins of Tesseract, and maybe a little bit of James LaBrie, even though I kind of complain about him. But yeah, no, they're very similar. But the growls kind of range from a giant roar to almost like a black metal scream, so kind of depends on some of those blast beat sections or more heavy sections in terms of like the vocal approach he uses, because sometimes it can sound more black metal, sometimes it can sound more death metal, but always melodic, but still aggressive.
Unlike most bands that are considered heavy and or death metal, you'd hear a lot of breakdowns in here, and this record doesn't really have a lot of that, and that's not a complaint. But the breakdown in Misery Code 2, Anatomy of Quiescence, the ending of that song, at least, this is the one time that a breakdown does appear. Downright death metal fucking chugs, nasty death growls. That's about the only time it really appears.
I mean, it's a pretty brutal moment. But I kind of get that, this band is busy doing like everything else. Like there are so many different avenues that this band goes down, and they generally do them pretty well. This album is great about dynamics though. Big sweeping moments between like more reflective, somber, clean singing and clean playing to downright just heavy, giant sections just packed with aggression. And it's all very emotional. Like, all this sounds like it comes from the heart as well as the brain, because a lot of thought went into this. And generally one of my complaints about some prog bands is there's a fair amount of wankery, and I can't necessarily make that same complaint, but I also can. The violin playing has such an interesting dynamic. It really makes this band stand out. And when the guitars and the violin play off one another, it is a very unique dynamic and yields some really awesome results. The end of the song Growl, it's a sweeping solo, and we couldn't tell if it was all violin or guitar or both.
Look, we had to listen to it, we had to rewind and listen to that probably 6 or 7 times and go, is that a violin? Is it? I'm not 100%. I'm still going to be honest. I'm still going to be honest.
I'm like,
it could be a blend of violin and guitar. It could be all violin with some effect on it, or it could be guitar that also sounds like violin. It might be both.
I think it's both. I'm like 75% sure of that one. But towards the end, when it blends together as a harmony, you can definitely tell that there are two instruments and how they play off of one another. And not just in harmonies. You have moments in here where it's lead trade-offs between a violinist and a guitarist. And it's really cool. But there's also some issues here. And, well, it kind of centers in on the guitars a little bit. The guitars on here, at least the rhythm guitars, often get kind of buried on this. And that is large in part to, well, the violins being very out front. I mean, it's more of a lead instrument, and it does add a unique character to this band. But also the bassist, which the bass work in here is fucking awesome, much
Yes.
like everything else, but that bass sounds really high in the mix.
It is very out front. Normally, you get the bassist that sticks to the root and follows along with the guitar. And normally, my complaint is the bass is buried. Half the reviews we've done over the years, I could say, well, it'd be a lot cooler if you could hear the bassist. Well, in this case, that bass is so out front that it oftentimes will bury the rhythm guitar. And the rhythm guitar, when it is cooking, it's, really fucking good. But when that bass comes in, complemented with the violin that comes in, it just gets washed out.
Yeah. I mean, when the lead channel comes on for the guitars, it sounds really good.
Yeah.
But that's why I brought up, like, isolating certain riffs. Like, when they isolate it, they're like, all right, yeah, you can hear that riff. But if the bassist isn't sticking to the root notes, like in like a really chuggy part, and he's kind of doing stuff underneath it, which that happens pretty often on here, then it gets absolutely buried. And while I like all this really cool bass work on here, like it really adds a lot, granted it's, again, up high in the mix, sometimes it is a little bit much, like namely on the sort of Middle Eastern break on Grawl. The song essentially drops out, like more clean acoustics. It kind of has like a, desert night and the Sahara sort of feel, but the bass line kind of just feels oddly jazzy, and it doesn't necessarily fit the whole vibe. Like, it just sounds like a jazz bassist wandering through the desert, strumming a song about dying of dehydration. It's just sort of an odd little bit on there, and again, the bass adds a lot of character to a lot of the songs, often doing, just as many leads as the guitarists. But I don't know, I just thought it was a bit much. And then there were a couple of songs in here that we thought were still good, but just, I don't know, sort of odd.
Kind of like in the song Misericord 2, where it really, in my opinion, could have been an instrumental. It's a well-composed song. It's actually heavier than some of the other songs. Really, you get about 7 minutes into the song before vocals appear. So we're talking like a 9.5-minute song where vocals don't appear till 7 minutes, and then they stick around for about 30 seconds before they leave again. The way that song was written, they might as well have just stuck with an instrumental.
Honestly, I would agree. Like, it sounds like a long post-metal build. Like, they build it by layer, steadily increases the energy and, just the intensity of the song.
Yeah, they're great with tension building.
Oh, yeah. It's an awesome slow build, but when the vocals come in, it's like, man, that just seems like an afterthought. And, dude sings on every single track in here. I think that could have been, like, just the ones, like, everyone's jamming. Let's just let it be a jam. And probably would have worked as a really good transitional track into Suspire, which Suspire's a fantastic track. And then there's the end track, Anhedonia. It feels like a little bit of an afterthought. And we were talking about, like, how this is, a very somber closer. It's, mostly violin and piano. There's some vocals, really excellent
like
vocals.
Chanted vocals.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're, really good. But the problem that I saw with that song most notably is that it doesn't really fit the vibe of the record, like, because the record doesn't open clean. If anything, the record just kind of kicks in. There's no filler, no nothing. You have this song that is all just calm and clean and serene, and while there's times in the record that kind of emotion appears, it's never a solid thought.
Yeah.
So, like, why put that in as the barn burner?
Yeah, like, this is the kind of atmospheric closer. Like, it's kind of a big calm down, but at the same time, I don't know if I wanted to calm down. Like, I felt like this album was going to end on a big crescendo or like an intense moment. And in its place, you had something that honestly is a little bit comparable to Radiohead's Pyramid song. Like, it kind of has that same vibe. I love that song, but I don't know if it necessarily fits here as a closer. Like, maybe towards the middle of the album, like you said.
Yeah. You could have taken it and put it right after, say, Misericord 2, because that would have, because of the way that Misericord 2 kind of closes, you could have calmed it down and then it ramped it back up. But instead, it just kind of dies off, and that's strange to me.
Yeah, but honestly, overall, this was a really solid listen. Just very engaging. Again, the musicianship is just stupid fucking good. Like, these guys are absolutely incredible musicians. So overall, I'm going to give this 3.5. I really enjoyed this. Does have some issues in terms of, like, maybe pacing and, again, like, kind of neutering the guitars a bit, like, because I feel like, at least rhythm-wise, they're not very present. But, musicality, Jesus, the instrumentation on here is fucking absolutely amazing. There's really good songwriting dynamics. I do think, again, like maybe tracks being rearranged in here might make this a stronger listen overall, but it's not very weak at all. Like this 3.5 is pretty close to a 4 overall. But yeah, this is absolutely killer. If you are a giant fan of, God, I mean, this is almost kind of a unique prog band.
Yeah,
Persephone. Persephone is a close one. Disillusion, BT Bam to a degree, Whiteboard, something like that. Definitely check this band out. This was fucking really good.
I'm pretty much in the same boat as Nick on this take. It's a 3.5 for me as well. I've always been a fan of this band. Don't let our even negative gripes about this dissuade you from the fact that we enjoy these guys. Stellar fucking musicianship. I can't say that enough. Again, this is not songwriting, this is musical composition. What a way for Dan Presland to send himself out of this band. Phenomenal work. As much as I like all the elements in this record, I also don't like the elements in this record, so to speak, because of just the way they're placed. Like you said, the pacing of the album just kind of is off at times, and it seems like it slows down at times where I think it should pick up, and or it picks up in places I think it should slow down. I don't really have a whole lot of gripes as much as I do like production on this thing. The bass being higher than it needs to be really does drown out a lot of the instrumentation, and that's unfortunate because of how good everyone else is doing. But overall, I don't have a whole lot of negative things to say so much as I, again, really enjoy this band. It's just a 3.5 for me overall on this record.
So if you enjoyed this review, give it a thumbs up. And if you are new to the channel, subscribe because we do stuff like this all the time. We are also on Patreon. If you'd like to help us out there, there's a link down below to thrallsmetal.com. Our Patreon is there and our store is there. We will be reloading on stuff probably sometime after Denver Death Fest.
April 20th through the 22nd, we will be hosting a 28-band extravaganza in Denver, Colorado. $60 for 3 days, $45 for 2 days, or $25 for 1 day. If you wait till the day of for the show to get tickets, it's $35 a day. So if you decide you want to come out, maybe buy in advance. Anyway, we are very thankful to be a part of this. It's been a whole lot of fun. We have a bunch of killer bands on the roster. Come out, bang your head, grab a drink, grab a buddy. Heavy metal time. Thralls of metal style, because that's what we do. Denver Death Fest.
We grab our buddies.
We
right by the penis.
We won't be doing illegal things.
Your penis is illegal.
Grab your buddies.
By the penis.
By the shoulder. Maybe by the arm. Anyway, coming out for Denver Death Fest. Gonna be a pretty killer fucking time.
And of course, thank you all so much for liking, subscribing, following, all that shit. It means the fucking world to us. The big thank you part at the end of the video where I say nothing different.
Thank you.
That's where we're at right now. But no, it always is something I want to do because you all fucking rule. You all keep us going. It is amazing doing this. Tons of content coming your way because we never fucking stop. So yeah, so just definitely stay tuned. And once again, you all fucking rule, and we will catch you later.